Hey, what is up, everybody? Everybody. This is Digital Drive, and I'm your host, Russell. What's up, everybody? This is the show we talk about technology and more. The Twitter for the show and the Twitter for the station is Hot News Radio on Twitter. Do at Hot News Radio on Twitter. Do a search for Hot News Talk Radio, you'll find us. If you want to tweet at the show live, and the number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. So, tube technology is kind of outdated, isn't it? Yeah, we don't really think of tubes when we think of computers anymore. We think of transistors, or in fact, we think of something a little bit smaller. We think of a microchip processor, which has many, many, many transistors on it, millions of transistors on it. So the idea of a single transistor doing much of anything is kind of an outdated idea these days. What about a tube? Well, now we're just getting crazy. But wait a minute, NASA thinks that tubes are still kind of cool. According to Ars Technica, NASA melds vacuum tube tech with silicon to fill the terahertz gap. Well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, I thought vacuum tubes were kind of outdated. Sure, they're great for amplifiers and other sorts of, analog audio applications, but for computing, I had no idea. The transistor revolutionized the world and made the abundant computing we now rely on a possibility. But before the transistor, there was the vacuum tube. Large, hot, power-hungry, and prone to failure, vacuum tubes are now a forgotten relic of the very earliest days of computing. But there's a chance that vacuum tube technology could make its way back into computers, albeit without the vacuum, thanks to the NASA research that has put together nanoscale vacuum channel transistors that can switch at more than, get this, 400 gigahertz. Now, for quite a long time in computing, we've been trying to break that terahertz barrier. We've been trying to get processors that are faster than a certain level. And the terahertz, I don't think we've been able to break that. Now, graphene has been an exciting technology for processors. Carbon nanotubes as well. Because silicon just doesn't seem to cut it anymore. And it just doesn't apply to Moore's Law, really. To further Moore's Law, we have to get rid of silicon somehow, or supplement it, which is what they've done here. Vacuum tubes have three important components: two electrodes, the negative electron-emitted cathode, and the positive electron-receiving anode, and a control grid placed between them. The flow of current between the anode and the cathode is controlled by the grid. The higher the voltage applied to the grid, the higher, or rather greater, the amount of current that can flow between them. All three parts are housed in an evacuated gas tube, or glass tube I should say, or bulb, that looks somewhat like a kind of overcomplicated light bulb, which it essentially is an overcomplicated light bulb. In terms of construction, in terms of just the sheer manufacturing process, it basically is an overcomplicated light bulb, much thicker though. The thing that made vacuum tubes so hot and power hungry was the cathode. Electrons can be encouraged to cross gaps by using very high voltages, but these tend to be difficult to work with. Instead, a phenomenon called thermionic emission is used. Heat a piece of metal up enough and the thermal energy lets the electrons escape the metal. Vacuum tubes have heating elements to make the cathode hot enough to emit electrons, which is why you would pretty much burn to death if you walked into a room that had a vacuum tube computer in it. Because a vacuum tube computer is huge and very, very, very hot. While vacuum tubes remain relevant to a few niche applications, megawatt-scale amplifiers and microwave generators, as well as lower-powered music amplifiers favored by audiophiles, they've almost entirely been replaced by transistors. Transistors are smaller, more reliable, and much less power-hungry. And with the development of the integrated circuit, transistors have been miniaturized such that billions of them can fit in the palm of your hand. And here's a fun fact. Intel, the computer chip manufacturer, that's not their original name. Intel used to stand for Integrated Electronics. Not intelligence, but integrated electronics. And that was created from a bunch of people who left companies like IBM, Bell, and Texas Instruments, and they founded Intel, Integrated Electronics. Them and Texas Instruments, those guys helped to found the very base principles of what we use in terms of transistors and later on processors, microchips, ICs. NASA's Ames Research Center could be bringing the vacuum tube back, at least spiritually, with vacuum channel transistors. Two researchers there accidentally built this new kind of transistor when working on a single nanowire, and they wrote a description of what they built for IEE Spectrum. Vacuum channel transistors are built on the same idea as a vacuum tube of old. Two electrodes, using transistor-style terminology, source for the cathode and drain for the anode, are placed in close proximity, separated by a vacuum. The flow of electrons from the source to the drain is governed by the voltage applied to what is called the gate. Unlike the tubes of old, however, NASA's vacuum channel transistors measure the gap between electrodes not in millimeters but in nanometers. Making them nanoscale has a couple of key advantages. First, it means the vacuum channel transistors don't actually need a vacuum. Vacuum tubes use a vacuum because without it, electrons collide with air molecules, ionizing the gas, which both damages the cathode and lets uncontrolled currents flow, and also can explode. When the gap is small enough, the chance of an electron colliding with a gas molecule is so low that this problem no longer arises. NASA's vacuum channel transistor uses helium at atmospheric pressure in its gap. So they could actually build something really, really fast, and I don't think this technology would be very expensive either. So what makes this vacuum channel transistor useful? Well, in a word, it's speed. The switching speed of a transistor is governed by the speed of electron flow through the transistor. Electron flow through traditional semiconductors is quite fast, but electron flow through a vacuum, or in this case atmospheric helium, is faster still, and that enables faster switching. NASA's prototype could switch at 460 gigahertz, and that is miles faster than any computer processor you'll buy on the market right now. That's miles faster. The fastest one I can think of that you can buy right now would be a 16 core, and I think it's only clocked at like 1.6 gigahertz per core. So that's not very fast compared to this. That's useful because it could enable the terahertz gap to be filled. It's currently difficult to both generate and detect frequencies from about 100 gigahertz to 10 terahertz. Lower frequencies are amenable to silicon chips and radio hardware, and higher frequencies are amenable to infrared and optical technology. The few devices that can operate in this frequency range tend to be very large and power hungry. If transistors could be made that worked at these frequencies, the terahertz gap could potentially be filled, and terahertz systems, including medical imaging, chemical detection, and genetic analysis, could proliferate. Don't forget about radio waves, too. At that high of a frequency, oh man, think about that. Super high frequency stuff. We could, man, the applications for something that high frequency is incredible. The results will not be immediate. NASA still has work to do, I should say, both to reduce the operating voltage of its vacuum channel transistor, which is currently 10 volts, and enable mass production. New techniques will need to be invented to package the helium within chips. Oh, that will be an issue. And that makes them slightly fragile too, so you don't want to drop your computer when that happens. That's another problem. Vacuum channel transistors aren't the only technology that might work at these frequencies. Earlier this year, researchers built a silicon germanium transistor that could switch at 798 gigahertz, albeit at temperatures of 4.3 Kelvin, or 417 gigahertz at room temperature. Moreover, SIGE manufacturing has already productized, so it may prove a more straightforward path. But still, this is good for us, the consumers, because it means we have super, super, super fast processors that are on their way, probably in the next few years, which is good because that means we can sort of look behind us and, or rather put silicon behind us, which will be nice for a lot of different applications. Silicon's great, don't get me wrong, but it'll be interesting if they'll change the name of the Silicon Valley to the Vacuum Tube Valley, you know, the Tube Valley, or who knows what else, you know, just the Computer Valley, or the I/O Valley, Bin Valley, Binary Valley. That'd be interesting. Who knows, man? I mean, these applications they're basically endless. Anything you could use a regular processor for, you could use these vacuum tubes for, and much, much more. Because speeds that fast are just, I can't even imagine that. That's incredible. In fact, I don't even think we have, no, I mean, hard drives don't even spin up that fast, so that'll be a nice thing as well. But I'm thinking with speeds that fast, you could emulate multiple computers that are currently running with that processor. Like create several, like, wow, probably 50 or so virtual machines of computers that are high powered for us currently in one of these computers. So that's really insane. I can't even imagine. That's just, wow, so cool. So cool. What do you guys think about this whole computer technology? It's getting faster and faster, and we're going to talk about virtual reality today as well. And it's with these fast speeds, virtual reality is going to be so much easier. It'll be so much easier to process everything because they can. I mean, they could code at their heart's desire. Basically, there's no need for streamlining or shortcuts or anything. It's just so fast that it could just crunch the numbers without even thinking about it. Well, it would think about it, but it would think so fast that it wouldn't even matter. That's crazy. So what do you guys think? 423-800-8949. These computers are just getting faster and faster. It's incredible. 423-800-8949. 8949. 800-8949. Now, also the Twitter, of course, is at Hot News Radio. Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Do a search for that. It'll pop up, Hot News Talk Radio. You can follow us and tweet us what you think about the programming that we're carrying or just anything at all. Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. So, let me check this phone here. My phone is what I'm carrying all the show notes for, by the way. I've gone completely paper-free. I'm very green. Sharp is entering the 4K fray for realsies this time, according to CNET. Yeah, 4K TVs. They're still a thing. They're not just a fad, I don't think. And, well, I don't know. I mean, I like 4K TVs, don't get me wrong. Ultra HD is amazing. But it's so expensive. And there's not really anything you can watch that's 4K. TV makers from Samsung to TCL are scrambling to introduce new 2014 4K TVs, even while the old, quote-unquote, 2014 4K TVs have barely cooled on store shelves. Sharp thus far has been selling only a holdover 4K model from 2013 and a pastel of underwhelming Quatron Plus sets with pseudo 4K resolution. Now Sharp will increase its selection of non-pseudo 4K TVs by 100%, introducing a pair of sets with actual 4K resolution. The new UD27 line consists of the 60-inch LC60UD27U, priced at $2,999, or basically $3,000, and the 70-inch LC70UD27U, priced at $4,499. The company lists their arrival date as September of this year. So 4K TVs are on their way, and they do exist. You can buy them. It's just that there's nothing at all to watch on them. CNET figures that those prices will have to fall between now and then, if only because this fall is when we expect Vizio's highly anticipated P-Series to arrive. Vizio is still officially mum about release dates. If you don't recognize the name Vizio, they are one of the leading TV manufacturers presently. They're known for pretty good quality stuff. They've been putting out quite a lot of TVs, especially I think they've sort of come into themselves around the time of the HD revolution that happened in the mid-2000s. That's when they started coming out with a lot of TVs. Vizio's highly anticipated P-Series is going to arrive, except we don't know when. The pricing for those sets is $1,799 and $2,599 for 16 and 70 inches respectively, and if the M-Series is any indication, they should offer excellent picture quality. So Vizio is going to undercut Sharp, it's looking like. Well, back to Sharp. Aside from 4K resolution, the UD27's main picture quality bullet point is THX certified, which is no guarantee of picture quality awesomeness, whether or not that certification actually happens. It will, though. But still worth a mention. The press release also mentions fancy names for the TV's color and up conversion. For what it's worth, that's like most 4K sets. The UD27 uses an edge-lit LED backlight scheme, not that that matters a whole heck of a lot. There's also a new feature called aquo dimming, whatever that means. Unfortunately, it's not actual local dimming, according to the company. Instead, it's processing that enhances contrast to show more detail in dark scenes, which is also a benefit of local dimming technology. That sounds really, really crappy to me, because you don't want automatic contrast, dithering, or whatever, because when they make a movie, they make it so that you have the contrast set at a specific point, and that's it. And, like, why would you want to adjust the contrast dynamically? I don't know. It seems like it would just be distracting because you would notice that change, especially if your movie has black bars at the top and bottom. If you're watching a, say, a 21 by 9 aspect ratio movie, cinema aspect ratio, on a 16 by 9 TV, there's going to be black bars at the top and bottom when you're watching it, right? So you're going to notice them get lighter and darker as the contrast adjusts, and that's just going to be distracting. I don't see any reason to be doing that. Just leave the contrast alone. That's worked for us for the last, 50 years. We've been using contrast on television, so I don't see any reason for that to make any difference or even be a benefit at all. 423-800-8949, that's 423-800-8949 is the number to call in. These TVs are so expensive too. I mean, I get they're roughly the same price as 1080p TVs when they first came out, especially the CRT HD TVs that were super expensive, but also look really, really good, by the way. The blacks on CRT HD TVs are amazing looking, but oh well. 22 minutes? Yeah, 22 minutes past the hour right now. What's the temperature looking like? What's our weather forecast? Because I haven't really visited that too much today. Overcast, it says, for today. 87 is the high, 68 is the low. Present temperature is 82 degrees. So we're swiftly approaching what our high is going to be, which is 87. Tomorrow, though, chance of thunderstorms. Same goes for the day after. Chance of thunderstorms, 86 is the high. Tomorrow and day after, Saturday, is 87 degrees. 67 and 68 are the low, respectively. Looks like we're going to have a rainy weekend. They keep shifting around the forecast. I know it's confusing, but it's looking like this weekend is, in fact, going to be rainy. In fact, looking at the AccuWeather Doppler radar, I can see that there is a pretty heavy storm front heading towards the east, towards Chattanooga from the west. So heading from west to east, we have a storm heading towards us here in Chattanooga. South Pittsburgh looks like it's already passed either right over you or right actually over you, right north of you. So it's over for you guys for now, looking at the AccuWeather Doppler radar, which we are partnered with here at Hot News Talk Radio. Of course, Hot News Talk Radio is your source for accurate weather prediction and hot news, of course, and sports. NASCAR we carry every Sunday, every weekend right here. You can hear it live on the Motor Racing Network here on Hot News Talk Radio. It's the only place you can listen to NASCAR on the radios, right here, Hot News Talk Radio. And HotNewsTalkRadio.com is your source for listening to us on your web machine, be it a computer or a desktop computer or a laptop computer or a tablet or what have you. Search for HotNewsTalkRadio.com. Go to that website. It starts streaming live to you right there without you having to push anything. Just minimize that tab and go about your business, and now you have Hot News Talk Radio right in your office after leaving your hot, sweaty car, because it gets really dang hot in these cars, and it seems like air conditioning doesn't even help. On your smartphone, if you're walking around and you have a data plan, or just on your Wi-Fi, you can go to TuneIn Radio, the app TuneIn, search for WSDT, and you'll find us right there. WSDT is our call letters here at the 1240 station. Search for that, and you'll find us. You can listen to us live on your smartphone without any hassle at all. That's 1240 WSDT right here in Sunny Daisy, in the Chattanooga area, the greater Chattanooga metro area, I think is what they call it. They always have these fancy terms for the greater Chattanooga metro area. Gig City. Gig City. There are no other gig cities except for those other ones. Kansas City and Austin, Texas, I believe, and that place in Washington, and that place in Oklahoma, and that place in Wyoming. But those places don't count. This is Gig City, right here in Chattanooga. It's a cool place, man. Chattanooga's a hip town, you know? I mean, I'm not knocking you guys in Dunlap on 910, not at all. Dunlap's a nice place. Not even South Pittsburgh over there in 1190. You know, South Pittsburgh is a nice place to live. Nice, quiet, not much goes on. It's just nice to live there. But here in Chattanooga, you know, we got more crime, but there's just stuff going on. It's like hip and cool, you know? All the cool kids in their hipster clothes and their cardigans and stuff, they hang out in Chattanooga and listen to really awful screechy music and talk about how good it is, even though none of them actually like it. That's Chattanooga in a nutshell. Now, I was actually talking to a guy the other day he's like, hey, check this music out, man, I just got it. And it was the worst thing I'd ever heard. But I don't want to hurt the guy's feelings, because I'm thinking, you know, this guy really likes this music. So I tell him, yeah, you know, I've never heard anything like that. That's kind of interesting. He goes, yeah, well, check this out, you know, and he shows me this other stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm thinking, like, this is the worst thing ever. This is a few months ago, I'm wanting to say. And it's terrible, like computer music, and I normally like computer music, you know, digital, Amiga, you know, demo scene, that sort of thing, but this was just bad. It wasn't even dubstep. It was somehow a step lower than that, if that's possible. It was just bad. In case you couldn't tell, I really, really hate dubstep with a passion. I hate it. Or at least I hate what I've heard, which is mostly Skrillex, and I realize he's not the authority on good dubstep, but whatever. I can't stand that stuff. You know, and I like myself some good computer music. I listen to the Amiga stuff, Demo Scene, Cracktros. Those things are great. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Hold on, though. We're going to talk more about this 4K nonsense in just a few seconds. Also, roaming charges have halved in Europe, and Toyota is going to launch the first hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, and it's only going to cost you $70K. Hold on.